Hey everybody, I ripped out my scarf this weekend and I started over. I reread the pattern and I took my time this time. It actually is more well written than what I had originally given it credit for, but I wanted to go over just a couple of the rows with everyone. So this pattern is a pretty simple repeat once you get in the flow of doing it. I'm not going to go over rows 1, 2, or 3. Rows 1 and 2 were just single crochets, and I think everybody's got the hang of that. Row 3 was what I just completed. That's the row where we do our 2 double crochets, our 5 V stitches, and end with our 2 double crochets. So those I think were also pretty easy for everyone. So I'm gonna start on row 4 because I know some people had some questions about getting the V's in the right spot. Our V's should end up stacked like this. So if you can see that, we've got one V right on top of the other V. So we're gonna start there with row 4, and then I'm gonna show you row 5 because that one, it's not really tricky, but I had misread the instructions last week, so I know I gave some of you incorrect instructions. So we're gonna go over row 5 as well. But we're gonna start with 4. So I'm at the end of row 3, and row 4 tells me to start with a chain 3. And remember, with a chain, we are just gonna grab the yarn, pull it through our loop. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Then it tells us to turn our work. So we're going to turn everything so that we are ready to crochet back across the work. Okay, the next thing it says is to double crochet in the next stitch. And this was a question some people had, by what did they mean by next stitch? So when we end up with our 21 stitches across, it counts this last stitch that we've crocheted into as stitch number 1. So when they say the next stitch, what they're telling you is don't double crochet into this stitch, but go into the second stitch from the hook. So I'm going to wrap my yarn, go into the stitch, I'm going to pull the yarn through the stitch. I now have 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to pull it through the first 2 loops, and then I'm going to pull it through the last 3 loops. So there's my double crochet. So I've got my 2 double crochets on the end. Now, row 4 is telling me V stitch in the chain 1 space. So the chain 1 space is this big hole here in the middle of your V. Because to create the V, we did a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. That chain 1 is what creates this space in the middle of the V. So that's where they want us to do our V stitch. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to wrap our yarn, do our double crochet. Then we're going to do our chain 1, wrap our yarn, and do our second double crochet into the same space. Okay, so once you've done that, the way to tell if you put it in the right spot is to look at those V's. Do they stack directly on top of each other? If they do, like they do here, you've gone into the right space. If you went into the wrong space, your V's would be off-centered, and that would mean you had gone into this big space that's in between the V's, and that's not where we want to go. We want to go right into the center of that V. So the instructions say just to continue doing that to the end of the V's. So we're just going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up these V stitches in the chain 1 space. And you can check them as you go if you want to look, make sure your V's are stacked, and then go on to the next one. If you're comfortable that you're putting it in the right space, you can just go ahead and finish out the row, and then you can check them at the end. So Okay, I've got one more V. Oops. Okay, I've now done all of my V's. They are all stacked above the V below them. I have 2 stitches left on the end, 1, 2, and I'm going to double crochet into each of those stitches. So wrap my yarn, go into the first stitch, do a double crochet. Wrap my yarn, go into the last stitch, and do a double crochet. Okay, and that is the end of row 4. Easy peasy, right? Okay, row 5 says to start with a chain 1. So again, I am just going to grab the yarn, pull it through my loop 1 time. That's a chain 1. I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to pull some more yarn out of my bag here. Okay, now it says single crochet, 2 single crochets. Now I have rewritten this pattern, this portion of it, to say single crochet, 2 single crochets in next stitch. They left out the words in the next stitch, so the first time I read the pattern, I wasn't really reading that, but that is what it means. So the first stitch, remember, is going to be where our last double crochet was. So we want to make sure when we're looking at the top of our stitches, if I can turn this so you can see it, where this stitch is coming out, this is my first V, okay? That's my first V. So I want to make sure I do my first single crochet into that V. Okay, so single crochet in the next stitch twice. And a single crochet, remember, we're just going into the stitch, pulling it through the stitch. I now have 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to pull it through both loops. Now I'm going to do that again in the exact same stitch. And so I now have 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm single crocheting all of my V's. And it's easier to think of it this way, that you're doing the V's, because you're going to single crochet into the stitch above leg 1. Then you're going to single crochet into the chain 1 space. And then you're going to single crochet into the stitch above the second double crochet leg of your V. So that's 3 stitches as well. When you get to the next V, you're going to do the same thing, and you're going to do that all the way to the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and single crochet the V's. We're going to do the leg of the V, the chain 1 space in the middle of the V, not the chain 1, the space below it, and then the stitch above the second leg of the V. And I've now single crocheted, oops, sorry, my camera moved. I've now single crocheted 3 more stitches. Okay, now I'm going to do these 3. The leg of the V, the center of the V, the leg of the V. So here we go. And the leg. Oops. Same thing with the next V. And the next V. and the last V. Okay, so now that I've done that, I have 2 stitches left. Okay, and that these, on mine at least, have been, the last end stitch has been a little hard to see, but I've got this V and this V. Those are my 2 end stitches. And I need to get 3 more stitches, and I know that because I should end up with 21 single crochets at the end of this row. I had 3 here at the beginning, and I had 3 for each V. There are 5 V's, so that's 15 stitches, plus the 3 at the beginning is 18. I need to end with 3, and the pattern tells us to do that. We are going to do 2 single crochets into this first stitch that we come to. So I'm going to put my hook in, do a single crochet. I'm going to put my hook back into that exact same stitch and do a second single crochet. And then I'm going to do 1 single crochet into my last stitch. Again, I have had a hard time getting into my last stitch. There we go. Okay. Now, you can count your stitches at this point if you want to make sure that you have 21 stitches. And again, I find it easier to look at the top and count the V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 is the one we just went through, so our yarn is coming out of 21. And again, we know we have 21 because we had 3 stitches on the end, 3 stitches on the end, and 3 stitches for every V stitch. So that was pretty simple. And once you have done it a few times, it goes by really fast. To start row 6, it's just a row of single crochets across and you end up with 21 single crochets. To do that, again, you have to start at this first stitch that your working yarn is coming from. So row 6 starts with a chain 1, and then turn and just single crochet across for a total of 21 single crochets. So when I go into the first stitch, I want it to be this very first V that my yarn was coming out of. That's going to be number 1. Unlike the other rows where we skipped that stitch, on these single crochet rows, you want to make sure you do get that stitch so that you get all 21 stitches across. So hopefully this video was helpful. If any of you wants the revised rows 1 through 5 instructions that I typed up, I'm happy to make a copy, and let's start crocheting.